co-founder of Ignited Minds Innoventures, Malshri, welcoming you all to the Decaquest, which is a journey that we have undertaken to connect with the topmost educationists and thought leaders around the globe, and share their ideas and views and their style of teaching and entrepreneurships and different things they feel about what can transform the society through our education system. So today we have with us Miss Devika NADIG, ma'am, and she is the co-founder of SHIKSHANGAN Initiatives, Education Initiatives, which is based near Pune and has a beautiful sprawling campus. So I have seen so many posts on the Facebook and LinkedIn, and I was so impressed by. I think it's a great mission they are on, that they are to deliver best learning to each child by building up competencies in the educators. So basically, they conduct workshops for educators, and I can vouch for this that they must be really amazing. I'm waiting for to join myself one of the workshops she's conducting.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So briefly, I would also like people to know about Ignited Minds Innoventures. This is a STEAM organization that is based in Delhi, and we are STEAM people. Like, we work on science, technology, engineering, and math and art integration into all the subjects, and we design and customize project-based learning activities for children, and we conduct them in schools with the children. So we have a team of people pan-India who are working with schools, and with the hybrid mode coming up, we are doing it online also and physically also. So we basically trigger that ignite the minds of young children, and they are very interactive sessions in which we let them ask questions. Basically, some children are really quiet, so it's like 40-50 minutes of free thinking sessions in which they give a lot of activities are given, and they just keep enjoying, and they, oh, see, I've made this, and so why it's not working. So we work on that part, why it's not working.
Right.
So that's the idea, ma'am. So ma'am, Devika ma'am has been a co-founder of this SHIKSHANGAN education initiative since, I think, 2008.
That's correct.
Yes, and previously she was the before starting this, she was the academic coordinator or director of a very premium school in Bombay and Pune, was it, ma'am?
Pune, yes.
Pune, yes. So she had been managing 2-3 schools, and obviously connected with the students. And ma'am has done her MA in English literature. And ma'am, so I think I would rather begin with the Decaquest. So the format will involve 10 questions, because I can't resist asking you questions already.
Okay.
So we
you can shoot.
So we have 10 questions.
Okay.
And 9 questions are obviously pertaining to your expert areas, and the 10th question is more of a surprise for you.
A good one, or a pleasant one, or an unpleasant one?
It's a rapid fire round.
Oh, good.
Okay. So, ma'am, I would really want to ask you one thing, that how did this journey begin? Like, being a student of MA English literature, then moving on to being an educator, then, being an administrator, and then suddenly startup, such a beautiful startup. How did this all begin?
I think I owe it to my childhood, and the way I was raised, and therefore I owe it to my parents. I owe it to my family and my little town in Madhya Pradesh, which is called Jabalpur, which is where I grew up.
Yeah.
And I grew up on the banks of the Narmada River.
Wow.
And I believe, and I've read about that if you're growing up on the banks of the river, you tend to be a little bit more inclined towards the arts, both performing and visual and literary arts and all of that. The river has something to do with it. You have all your great artists are also from Varanasi,
Yeah.
And today, of course, Varanasi is very much in the news since morning, as we know. The Prime Minister is there. Yes. But we have so many artists from the banks of the Ganges. So I think that my journey in literature, that's what you're asking, English literature, but I also have a degree in Indian classical music, as
Wow.
well as those days when you were doing your graduation, you had to take 3 disciplines. When I was in college, which seems like eons ago, and I had opted for Indian classical music because our family was very, very given to having a lot of performances at home of
Beautiful.
all the stalwarts and the Diggaj of the Indian classical music world.
Wonderful.
And we were exposed to a lot of good literature from the beginning. So, my parents would say that whatever else you chase in life, but Sahitya Kala or in चीजों के लिए वक्त निकालो,
बहुत सुंदर.
So I think that stayed with all of us, me and my family. And so I owe it there. So I did that and I graduated, then post-graduated with literature as well as with Indian classical music. But literature gets mentioned because ultimately I became a teacher of English and music doesn't get mentioned, although I pursued that for a long time. So that's where the genesis is. And I think your question is about what was the journey from there to SHIKSHANGAN.
Yeah.
So I think I would have loved to actually become an actress.
Oh, wow, beautiful. So every performing art into you.
Because, I mean, everyone in my little town was encouraging me to go to Mumbai, to Bombay then. But my family would have never allowed it. So they said, instead of that, do some performing arts. So I was giving some All India, the Doordarshan was not that popular, so All India radio performances. And my instrument is the sitar, so I had the very, very good fortune of having Ustad Vilayji Khan and others coming to our home. But then, after marriage and children and all that, I thought that I did do theater for a while. I will not hide that fact. I was doing professional theater with this Theatre Arts Workshop of Lucknow. And I was doing, because I come from Madhya Pradesh, so I was very well versed in Hindi theater and
naturally,
plays of Mohan Rakesh and Ekjut and all of that. But then I felt that, if I were to pursue that, then I would be distracted from my other responsibilities in the family, And so I chose teaching. And I did a full-time B.Ed course in Bombay University then. And I was very fortunate again there because I had Nizim Escail as the head of the Department of English. Everybody knows Nizim Escail. He's written poems, poetry, and The Scorpion, if you remember. It appears in the literature readers. And I was doing my B.Ed with English and social studies, history actually, as major. And then it was a journey of teaching. So I was teaching in Bombay. In a wonderful school on Pali Hill. And everybody knows, even if you're sitting in Delhi, that Pali Hill is full of film stars. I had the kids, star class, and it was fun because I was never away again from theater. So although I was in a school, I think the school gives you a platform. All of us who logged in might be in a school, and the school gives you a platform of everything. Theater, music, dance, drama, debates, elocution, along with academics. So I made the right choice. So I was a teacher for a long time, ICSE schools, because Shakespeare is what I loved and I continue to love. And because I was an English literature postgraduate, so ICSE gave me the opportunity to now, first I was learning as a student of literature, now I was teaching. So I think that that's what happened. And then a lucky break, as it is called in the work world, that I happened to be in Pune. And this school, which I just mentioned in the beginning, I don't know, I'm sorry, I haven't mentioned it here, I think. So there's a very large school in Pune, a very well-known school. And I got a good break there as a school principal. Wow. So I didn't teach there at all. Straight away, I became a school principal there. And then I was teaching I was teaching English to a couple of grades and then went on to become the principal and then the academic director, looking after all the sections of the school. I think my management was extremely supportive. If they're listening in today, even if they're not, I you need someone who sort of trusts in you, right, Malashri?
True.
And they trusted in me so much. It's something that was a turning point. They trusted in me so much. They said, just do what you want, make this one of the finest schools in Pune city, and we did it.
I think it takes
So
the best
it's
in you when they put in the trust in you. You want to do better and the best.
Absolutely. No questions asked for any decisions you make.
Wow.
And complete trust. And you just go by your gut. Because if I tell you what I'm reading now and the amount I read now as a teacher educator, I don't think I was doing that then, because you were still, you're in karma yoga, right? You're actually always in action. Yes. Because you are on the, it's like a fighting all the time in schools. And yet you're doing various things which, when you look back in retrospect, and when I'm reading the research now, I sometimes say to my colleagues there and even now that we did this long back. We did it by gut. We did it by intuition. We just did it by trust, instinctively. But now research says that you should do this. So that was a journey.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'm very proud of all of us who were together, who were the co-suffer, co-travelers.
I'm sure. I mean, it must have been a great team together. You spent
it was. Time. Many of them are there. Many of my teachers went on to become principals in many sections there. But also Pune then, I mean, there were most of the schools in Pune were coming up, and everybody was doing something beautiful, very well-known schools now. And we used to think of ourselves, pardon me from saying so, but we used to think of ourselves as the renaissance of education in Pune. Because it used to be known as Oxford of the East. It's still known as Oxford of the East. But we created a buzz. Yeah, so that was what it was. And so I became an academic director because it became too much for me to be a principal in 3-4 different sections. I was zipping across the sections all over town, and it was not making sense. So then we appointed principals, and I was an academic director for a long time. And then the thirst of, the hunger of training more than
what.
So I thought, as just this school, just 200 teachers, I can make a difference to so many other teachers, if I became a teacher trainer. And that was the journey that helped me launch SHIKSHANGAN in 2008. And SHIKSHANGAN works all over the country. Probably your second question, you might want to know about SHIKSHANGAN. So that was the birth of SHIKSHANGAN.
Yes, that is the question, ma'am. That yes, I know that. I mean, like I've been through the profile, and I was just wondering, like 800 schools you have impacted, and around 8,000 educators you have, conducted workshops with. So that's a voluminous thing. So how? What is SHIKSHANGAN about? I mean, I know it's like it's conducting workshops and all, but there's more I want to know about it.
Yeah, so I as we are driven by a mission to bring about changes in the way people who are in schools are thinking, right? And we also are aiming ourselves for the all-round development, which is a very cliched way of saying it, but not for the child, but for the entire education landscape in our country. We are committed to aiding the schools, and not just schools, but other organizations who may be working with schools, because we also do a lot of work in the CSR of companies, right? So we work with school teachers, school leaders, administrators, and so on. And we do this through, because in the pre-COVID days, we were doing it face-to-face. So all the time we had a suitcase packed, all right? And all the time we were traveling all over the length and breadth of the country. We've been very fortunate. And SHIKSHANGAN has taken, Malashri, I would have never, I'm proud of my own religion, and I practice very, very briefly, not intensely. But I would have never undertaken a yatra of 12 Jyotirlings or any of that. Even though I know the 12 Jyotirlings by heart.
That's because you come from MP, yes.
Malum to hai, Sanskrit ke shlok to malum hai. But SHIKSHANGAN took me everywhere. I mean, SHIKSHANGAN took me to, I think I've done 9, because we went to Rameshwaran, we went to Kashi Vishveshwaran, we went to Somnath, Kedarnath, Parali, Vaijnath, Trimbakeshwar. We went everywhere. And I'm so grateful for that. So that, as well as seeing different parts, east, west, north, south, central India. How are people thinking? How are they working? How do they run their schools?
Multicultural exposure. You also got,
Oh, yeah.
right? Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And everywhere we did different trainings. And you know what? The beauty of the pandemic, if there is one, is that initially there was a struggle of now what do we do, because everything was face to
There's a
face.
question mark, yes.
Yes, but within a month, the transformation happened, and and a lot of people have logged in from other places, but the borders just dissolved.
Yes,
That's very true. We're training teachers in UAE, in Doha, Qatar, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Nigeria. We're training teachers in so many countries.
All over, yes.
We just have to manage the time.
Yeah.
That's all. So that has been one advantage.
Yes. Yes, the boundaries and education, I think, has become, it's very dynamic now. You can just, it's just a matter of logging in and you get the resources. Like I couldn't have connected with you so well had there been no Zoom and, pandemic.
Absolutely.
That's the only thing that's good that's happened, I think.
Correct. So I wouldn't say that, there is a magic in face-to-face.
Yes, of course.
Because you carry that magic with you when you're training, there's an aura of the trainer. But and I'm really hoping that we get back to that someday, so I don't know, the pandemic seems to be here to stay, but maybe someday. But meanwhile, we have to maximize what we have, and that's what SHIKSHANGAN is doing. So we're spreading the good work. Just to highlight a couple things, I think our flagship program is the school leadership program, where we train school leaders, principals, coordinators, supervisors. India doesn't have a preparatory course for becoming a school principal.
True.
A good teacher is made a principal. Sometimes you lose a good teacher and you get a lousy principal in the bargain, and then she doesn't teach. So we are doing this. We are preparing people to become good leaders. Those who are already been thrust in that position, we are helping them sharpen their skills, both emotional, physical, social, intellectual, so that they can stay good on the job as effective school leaders. That's our flagship program. We also do something known as long-term hand-holding, these days online, and we have some 7-8 prestigious schools of India, including several DPSs tied in with us for a contract of about 1.5 years of hand-holding. So that's a lot of training. They send back a lot of material, their lesson plans, we check, send them back, we observe their online teaching, and a lot of else.
Wow, brilliant.
Yeah, lots of stuff. Plus, we have a lot of single modules, which are aimed at teachers. So we do those through our programs called Friday Fun Day and a Wise Break and so on. Plus, a lot of schools book modules with us, a bulk of 5, 10, 6 modules.
10, yes.
Yeah.
So I would like to know about those details of the modules you're going through. And, so, ma'am, you told that you've been working with school leaders and administrators and, so I also read on your profile that you work with the parents. Parents need a lot of counseling these days. More than the children, I think, with so much pressure of the pandemic, exams, stress, children staying at home. So is it also happening?
So I must confess that we haven't worked with parents after the pandemic started. What we were doing is a program called Palak Niti, which was a program for actually showing them how to be cooperative with their child and not very dominating. And what is the role that they play as a guide, and how can they match their expectations to the child's abilities, and how can they sort of be non-judgmental and non-comparative and non-competitive just because somebody else's child is doing something. So we used to have those face-to-face programs where schools invite SHIKSHANGAN to conduct these programs for the parents. So it's done always through the schools. Otherwise, parents is a very amorphous body out there. How do you get them? And therefore, we haven't done that in the pandemic at all, because parents are highly stressed right now and schools are trying to cope with that.
Absolutely, because managing things at home with children is becoming, especially
Very
for
tough.
working parents.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's also very tough for teachers, Malshri,
Yeah,
because
definitely.
teachers are also managing their homes plus teaching, right? It's
It's
extremely
difficult,
difficult.
unless you zoom out into your own workspace. The home is always there in your head going on. So it's really hard to have a workspace and that mental makeup to
Yeah.
work. So there's a doorbell ringing, there's things happening all the time.
So,
So it's stressful for
all
all of
right.
us. Yes. So,
Okay.
ma'am, there are like you said, you groom the administrative skills, and you also work on different pedagogies. Like, could you just explain about, this is the fourth question I'm on. Like, I would like
All
really,
right.
yes.
I'm not keeping
No,
track
I'm
of the
keeping it
question.
back.
Okay. So I think we do a whole lot of modules. And so one of the best things that I've learned and done as a teacher educator, and this is not just in the pandemic, but I would say the last decade, is that I have read and read and read a lot. Okay. I believe that if you want to be a good educator, you just cannot escape the research which is going on all over the world. And yeah, I'm not saying that we don't teach well in India. Our teachers do great work, but we do not have a culture of documenting our work.
True.
So since we don't document what we do, it's not
Mm.
available to us,
Mm.
and therefore we don't even have a lot of good journals in India, educational journals, which are really worth your time
Mm.
and to read. There are magazines, but they are full of advertisements, and you know what they are.
Mm.
So there are a few. I would definitely name Teacher Plus from Hyderabad as one, because it's supported by Azim Premji University. There's another couple of others, like Learning Curve and so on. So that apart, we subscribe. Shikshangan subscribes to a lot of good research journals from abroad, and we devour them. We
I'm
read
sure
them.
it must be a treat, yeah.
We just devour them. I mean, for the last 10 years, we have just read so much that it's impossible for anybody to really even manage that. So, so I believe that first I have to sharpen my own skills, my own understanding of the domain of education.
Mm.
So I've done that. And based on that, we have developed a lot of modules, almost on everything, starting from effective pedagogy to lesson planning.
So I was just going through one of your
Yeah.
articles, or I think it was a module in which, I mean, we all as educators think that, children should be learning and it should be fun. But the way you had sorted it out in a flowchart form, I mean, I was like, kind of zapped. I said, wow, this is really, sorting is extremely important. And like you said, documentation has to be there. We have a lot of information, but it's very difficult to sort and put it in a proper way so that children and educators can understand. So
I
I think
think
that's
that
great.
that sorting will happen. What you're calling sorting is actually what we like to call in Shikshangan, putting things in frameworks.
Exactly.
So when you put your ideas in any kind of a framework, it becomes very easy to remember, recall, and understand that this is how it fits.
Yeah.
So what you might have seen is frameworks that we've developed for everything:
Yeah.
differentiated teaching, accelerated teaching, effective pedagogy, lesson planning, whatever, project-based learning, critical thinking, art integration, whatever is the buzzword today. I like to call it whatever is the flavor of the season. We put it in frameworks, and we are able to do that because of our background of enormous reading ourselves. It is not given in any book.
It has to be compiled.
It's not ready-made. It's not ready-made. I must say this at the cost of sounding a little bombastic. Last year in 2020, so many people became trainers.
True.
Because there were so many PowerPoints available on the internet. Download kar lo, pad lo. Last thank you ki slide tak pad lo. Okay. So that is not what we do. We just
that's just, I think, transferring information. It has to be processed and put it in a different
you have to have read it, absorbed it, and then distilled what is required for the class.
Absolutely.
Because unless you get the research to the practice, which means from the theory to the classroom, it's of no use. And Shikshangan's forte lies in that. The best of ideas from the world of management. Vijay, my partner of Shikshangan, who is not joined today, he's done his master's in management from IIM Bangalore. I've done my education degrees. And together, we
Right.
have blended the best practices of management, the best practices of education, and we bring it to the Indian classrooms. That this is what you have to do. So actionable plans through frameworks. That's what we
because
do.
it becomes like when the teacher is giving notes to the child, you just copy the notes and just forget about it after a while. So in case, I mean, unless you do it in a different format and make it more understandable and assimilatable, like I feel like that, that it should be absorbed by the
Absolutely.
educators,
So
unless.
even when we train, we help people create frameworks for themselves.
Yeah.
And that's the immersion of learning, that it's not something which is given to you ready-made.
Yeah. So, ma'am, there are a lot of modules you do. This is assisting on acceleration and remediation was one that was mentioned. So, I would like to
That's an
ask you
interesting
about.
one. You
Yeah.
happen to have picked up an interesting. Do you have the question further?
Yeah, this is the question basically, because
Okay.
I'm very touched upon the topic, very sensitive about inclusion of, different children. So the teachers obviously need a lot of training on that, how to manage those children who are a little, they have a learning disability or any other kind of disability. So how do you
All
do
right.
that?
So, when you say inclusion, I look at it as there are differences, there are significant differences amongst students. Okay. And the teacher needs to respect those differences and take them into account. When you say disability, I am discounting physical disability. Okay. So if you're saying disability, which is a disability of the intellect, and if some children are unfortunate to have been born with CP, which is cerebral palsy or mental retardation, etc., then the so-called mainstream schools might not be able to take care of that. They need to be in a special school.
Yes.
But therefore, I do not call the children who are different from each other pedagogically. What are the significant differences pedagogically? That's important for us. Those are not called disabilities. All right. Those are just differences amongst children, which are coming in the way of all of them learning everything at the same time.
Sure.
All right. Now, here, there are three significant differences, but I'll point to just two because you mentioned acceleration.
Yes.
One difference is the difference of readiness itself. That means some students are ready to learn whatever you're about to introduce. Some students are not ready. Why are they not ready? Because they do not have the background knowledge required to learn the new concepts and skills.
Sure.
So the acceleration model, which is a fantastic research-based model by Susie Pepper Rollins, okay, and that model covers this idea that you speed up, jumpstart the learning. So see, we used to do, the child is here, the class is here. Okay. Now, if you're doing remediation here, the child moves up a little bit, but this class also moves up. So the gap remains the same.
Yes.
But when you are here and here, you do acceleration, you bring them zoom up to speed with the rest of the class. And then the motivation is up, shored up, the hand is up, they're answering the questions and so on. So acceleration is a technique. It's a 6-step technique that we actually take the teachers through. And we say, do not do remediation, throw it out of the window, do acceleration. To plug the gap which is in readiness. That is one difference in students. The other difference that we'd like to take care of is the difference of interest and learning styles.
Yes.
Yeah. So some students are just not interested in math. Some are not interested in language. Some are not interested in social studies and so on. So we go back, we fall back to the framework again. For everything, you need a framework. So we fall back to the framework, which is very popular, Howard Gardner's MI.
Howard Gardner.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we use his multiple intelligence, but we call it multiple interests.
Okay. Yes.
We
very
say,
appropriate. Yes.
Yes. We say that, listen, let's take the path. And, in your lesson plan, make sure that you include, because language and math is usually included. But can we do something with music sometime? Can we do something out in the nature sometime? Can we do something as a physical activity? Can we give them time for introspection, metacognition, for intrapersonal? Can we put them in some teaming as like jigsaw strategy for interpersonal intelligence? So that's the way we address the differences in students, academic differences which are pedagogically material. That's the way we address them.
Yes. So I think, yeah, so similarly, I've been talking to a lot of educators, and we've been doing a lot of webinars earlier also. So this was a STEAM webinar from which, Fatima Agarkar, she had come, Agarkar ma'am, and she's from sports, and there was another art teacher. So I was just wondering, why can't a physics teacher go to an art class and explain something, or maybe a physics teacher can go to a cricket ground and explain the angles. I mean, it would be so brilliant, something like this. So this is exactly how you integrate their interest into the learning, right?
So everything that you do, so my understanding from this is that it has to reflect in your lesson plans.
Yes.
Otherwise, it will remain a very superfluous, fluffy, cloudy idea in your mind. It will never get executed.
Yes.
It has to come down to your lesson plan, and your teacher has to action it. Only then can you say that, yes, I am taking care of these individual differences in my students.
True.
That's the way.
So that's you have to make them learn, I mean, in a fun way, basically, so that they'll remember for life. It's not just going to get 5 marks and 5 marks and all.
Yeah, that's what the NEP is also saying.
Yes. We hope to. Yeah.
So which question are you on?
I'm coming to this. There was an interdisciplinary thing that we've already covered. So, but I wanted this art integration part, ma'am, in the, that's one thing. Yes.
Yeah. So I think my personal feeling is, and I'm sorry, I don't want to hurt anybody, but I don't think people have really understood why should you do arts integration. CBSE has said it, so everybody is saying it. Okay, the NEP has said it, so everybody is saying it. But are the teachers pausing to think about why do we need arts integration at all? Okay. So for me, I perceive it as a tool for developing aesthetic sensibilities in my learners. I think it's so important, and I'll tell you why. So that our learners, our students will be able to respond. I'm saying respond to the beauty in color, in shape, in form, movement, sound, everything. So visual arts, performing arts, both. So what the NEP says, and I have to mention it here because arts integration, and they're also combining it with appreciation of our cultural heritage. See what's happening in Varanasi today.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So cultural heritage, it should be twinned. Twinning is required. Okay. Yeah. And I'll tell you why, Balashri. This is something that I like to say, that the mind is profoundly influenced by what it sees. And if the eye is trained from very early years to the contemplation of beauty and harmony in life, then there is hope that our habits and our characters would be attuned to the following a path of beauty and harmony everywhere, even in our adult life.
Wonderfully said, ma'am. I think it was.
And you know what? Here, I read about a phrase somewhere, which I loved. If we don't do this in our schools, then you know what will result? We might create a generation which has a poverty of taste.
True.
Isn't that a beautiful phrase?
True.
A poverty of taste. They do not have good taste.
Yeah.
And we don't want to live in a world like that. We want to live in a beautiful world.
A beautiful world, yes, with harmony and peace.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So appreciation of beauty is a must, I think. Yes. So even
beauty, form, sound, color, rhythm, harmony, symmetry, asymmetry, everything.
It has to trigger I think it kind of de-stresses us also, kind of, the child, if he learns to kind of paint, or I mean, may not become a painter, but I think it's a de-stressor for them also.
So there are 2-3 things, like, see, I mean, of course, painting and color, etc. is beautiful. Symmetry. I think there's a lot of beauty in asymmetry as well.
True.
But that's one way. So one way of looking at arts integration is having arts in the school. But that's not what NEP is saying. NEP is saying, National Education Policy 2020 is saying that integrate arts in all the domains. All right. Now, here comes the skill of the teacher. So we look at it at SHIKSHANGAN as, again, there's again a framework of 3-pronged strategy of integrating art. One, look for art in your domain itself. For example, in history, there are cave paintings.
Yes.
So what are the colors and the pigments they use? How come they're still lasting for so many thousands of years?
So much science, history, everything involved in one thing.
Everything.
One thing to take up,
History. Geography, you have the beauty of the, so I'm giving you some examples which otherwise are not thought through, you know. Geography, what about the stalactites and the stalagmites? They are so beautiful in the caves. In history, what about the Stonehenge, let's say, that they're just stones. Suppose I was doing, so I'll give you an example. Suppose I was teaching rocks and minerals. Okay. How would I integrate art and make it interdisciplinary? Let's say. So rocks and minerals is my theme. If I'm doing history, like I said, I might talk about the monoliths, as well as the Stonehenge, as well as the poetry in stone in the temples of Halebid, Belur, Khajuraho, the way the stone is carved, beauty. So if I was doing geography, there is music in the brooks, in the streams, right? And we call it a singing stream. If it is language, we have, oh, she's a gem of a girl. Oh, you are the diamond of my heart.
Okay. It's amazing the way you put it.
In Hindi, you say, eat ka jawab patthar se. Patthar ki lakeer.
Everywhere is stone.
Patthar ka kaleja. I mean, it is everywhere. You bring the same rocks and minerals into economics. You are doing jewelry making and selling. There are precious stones and gems. And weights and measures are with stones. History, they used to use stones to count. If it is recreation, हमने तो बचपन से पिट्टू खेला, you know, stones खेला, hopscotch खेला. We used to call it chitty dhap. Okay. If you go to music, there are so many instruments made with stones. So the idea is that you take any theme, you first integrate it in all the subjects, and then find the art connection.
Oh, beautiful. You know?
I think so actually it's a lot of work, but it's such fun.
I know it can. I think you enjoy it.
So we give frameworks for this
as a passion, no? Stringing of things. Yes.
So aap dekh lena, you know, I have studied CBSE, ICSE, all the documents, but the way Shikshangan is teaching integration of arts in all subjects as a project, you might not find it such a cohesive way, because they are giving good examples of for example, CBSE document is saying that use Varli for teaching congruent, you know, images, or for teaching triangles and all of that. But and the fractals like snowflakes in mathematics and so on. But this is the way Shikshangan says it, integrate it like a project. That's what
it has to be a complete holistic thing in everything. Yeah,
and that's project-based learning.
That's project-based learning. Yes, that's what. Yes, that was my next question. Was how do you, how as an educator one can, you know, kind of trigger critical thinking through project-based learning? You know, we have to have that.
Continue, please.
That's the question. I was just going to elaborate. I think you got it.
No, so my the first thing that I always say is that project-based learning is very different from doing a project.
True.
Okay? So project-based learning is the pedagogy. Doing a project is an end result. You finish the teaching and you ask the students to do a project, make a model, make a scrapbook, do this, make a chart, etc. But PBL, as it is popularly called, is pedagogy. You are teaching through that method. That's number one.
Sure.
Number two, PBL has structured activities. It develops all the 21st century skills like problem solving, critical thinking, communication, creative thinking, content mastery. All of you know that. Then put students in collaborative group work. It's of a long duration.
True.
If it is a longer duration, 2 months, 6 months, it is exploratory in nature. It allows higher order thinking, and that's why you're asking about critical thinking. I'll come to that. The explorations must connect to the real life of the child. That's why it becomes authentic. And if possible, whenever possible, you should make it interdisciplinary, like I just showed you about the rocks and minerals. So where critical thinking is concerned, you know, again, people use a lot of these terms very loosely, but I like to give the example of from our physics, you know, that there is divergent rays and there are convergent rays. Okay. So the divergent rays is creative thinking, which is generating a lot of ideas. Then from that, when you choose the best idea, it is converging thinking, which is also known as critical thinking. So critical thinking is nothing but drawing out one or two best strategies out of a whole lot of options that you might have. Okay? So project-based learning encourages critical thinking because it helps you to isolate facts, to distill facts, to bring just the gist of what you have really explored into your research, because a PBL will have an essential question.
True. True.
Suppose, let me give you an example that might probably, suppose I'm doing something on, let's say, I want the students to do a project on indoor games like snakes and ladders, Ludo, Carom, etc. Now, there is an essential question. Why are indoor games important to us in our life? Then there is an end goal. That means at the end of this, what will the students learn? They will learn critical thinking, problem solving, etc. Then they have to also, at the end of PBL, have a product. So they might make an indoor game themselves. They might develop and design one. Then you break them up into groups. Each group will do a variety of things of indoor games, the history of games, geography of games, the economics, the business, how expensive is it, the pricing, what about the designing? Does the brain mind principle come into play when they are designing in the indoor games, etc., etc., etc. It'll go on. And then they finally make a game.
Yeah.
So it takes a long time, but critical thinking is definitely involved. So is creative thinking in PBL. So we also, of course, do a lot of sessions on PBL and get teachers to actually design projects. We give them frameworks. I'll be happy to share some notes over emails with you, and you could share them with your participants if you have the email.
I would, definitely would, because I think this is brilliant, and I'm coming next time as soon as this is getting over.
Please
I hope you call people to Shikshangan. I would love to see the campus.
Oh, yes, I can. A lot of people have been waiting for the pandemic to be over and come here, and we'd love that as well.
Yeah, I know. So, ma'am, I think this was a brilliant thing. Another very, very critical question that I want to ask people like you is, about assessments. Children get very, very traumatized during their 10th and 12th, and otherwise also, test. Plus, there is we had one session with Lata ma'am, last one, the Decaquest, in which she mentioned that, we have a set of important questions. That's all children do, and that's it. I mean, there is no actual kind of deep thinking or something involved. Even if it's a deep thinking question, it'll be so repetitive that the child stops thinking and learns the same question, and that's it. Like 10 on 10, that's good enough. But that innovation and that, creativity of the child is gone. So that's the sad part of our assessments, that they become very repetitive and monotonous. So how do you think that can be improved?
I think assessment is a reality.
Yeah.
And in India, particularly, assessments drive instruction. Okay. So you know what kind of papers are going to be set. And then everything is planned around the children are prepared to answer that paper. So it's not learning, it's about answering the paper.
Exactly.
It's about scoring the marks. It's not about learning. Yeah. In India, when we say, have you learned? What it means is, have you memorized?
So record it.
Yes. It is not about, have you understood? Can you write this in your own words? That's never asked, So assessment is a reality. Unfortunately, it's been made a demon because of this competitiveness of getting into the next institute of learning, because of the cutoff. You're sitting in Delhi, and Delhi is probably crazy. Delhi University is not even happy with 110%.
It's crazy there.
It's crazy. So I think that's a reality. But what we can do is reduce the exam stress. One of the ways in which we can do is, we do a lot of work at SHIKSHANGAN on the brain-mind learning principles. And one of the principles, which is probably the 11th one, is a brilliant research which has happened, is about challenging learning. Learning is enhanced when you are giving challenges, but it is inhibited by threats. Okay.
Yeah.
Complex learning is enhanced by challenge. Sounds like a oxymoron, right? That how can it be something which is good if it is challenging?
Yes.
But it is inhibited by threat. Threat of punishment, failure, not doing well, threat of also boredom, by the way.
Yeah.
Some teachers are just so boring. I mean, children, they're sitting in the class physically, but their mind is out. There is an amygdala hijack. They've gone. They're no longer in your class. But if you give them appropriate challenge, when they're learning something complex, actually they shine.
Yeah.
You must have read about Carol Dweck's theory about growth mindset and fixed mindset. A fixed mindset will also happen when you're constantly telling the student, you're not good at this, you're not going to do this, you're not going to achieve this. Or you're telling the student, you're brilliant, you don't have to study. Both ways, both ways you create a fixed mindset. But can we show our students the succinct relationship between effort and success? The more effort you put in, the more successful you will be. And that effort is not about what's your percentage. The effort is to be put in learning, in understanding. So I think that if we can teach our children to enjoy the process of learning and not really be so focused on the product, the end product, we might have a happier generation. In the schools. That's what I think.
And more, I think, creative and like critical thinkers and innovators, because if you kind of, when they ask questions, we try to hush them up, especially in hybrid mode of learning, there is so much. I don't blame the educators. It's very difficult to handle a class of 35 in a Zoom thing. But yes, they can't ask questions as much they would have asked physically.
You're right. You're
and
absolutely
physically,
right.
there are teachers who would just shut them up, because I don't want to discuss it right now. Later, maybe I need to.
I mean, these are realities, everyday realities, but we have to still rise above that and see how can we still reduce the stress.
True.
One of the ways which I said was this, and there could be many others, I'm sure.
So, ma'am, you mentioned about, this is the second last question we are on, like ninth one. So this is about this differentiated instruction. That is another module you have, which I think mentions about.
I thought you were going to ask something about. I've actually told you about differentiated instruction. Probably we have to answer national education policy now.
National education policy is going to be a part of it only. So different.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. All right.
So I need to string them together.
All right. Sure.
So like you said, multiple intelligences and, multiple interests. So NEP, like when we were small, although CBSE had always had psychology with physics, but we never got access to the resource persons. We would have PCM and PCB and, things like fixed. So now NEP has made it more dynamic, and hopefully the schools are going to be more, have more resources. So, ma'am, I would just like to know about what do you think? You think it's going to be executed in a good manner? Like, I mean, principally, it is so beautiful. NEP, if you read the document, I mean, it's like kind of utopian. It feels like it's so good, too good to be true. But implementation, I think, would have major problems. So, what do you think should be done for that?
Okay, so I really believe that the NEP is a marvelous document. Okay, after many years, it's a fantastic document. And because I'm a sort of a pedagogue, and therefore I've looked at it from the pedagogical lens, more intensely. And I've seen what they're saying about the content, the pedagogy assessment. Because again, that's a framework, the what, the who, the what, the why, and the whether. What should I teach? How should I teach? How do I know whether my students are learning? Which is again content, content, pedagogy, and assessment, same thing. So they've got a lot of stuff down there which everybody's aware of, about reduce the content, but increase higher order thinking skills. I mean, the Prime Minister himself has said on television those days when NEP was released that, teach them how to think and not what to think. That became a buzzword. And therefore, that points to the pedagogy of bringing in the project-based learning that we've just talked about, which also includes experiential learning, critical thinking, and so on. It also includes, Malashri, you actually have touched upon everything. You also talked about assessment, and the NEP also says that assessment needs to be continuous and formative in nature. Now, you were asking me about implementation, right? How is it possible, etc. I think that a couple of things they will put in place. I mean, we also had the pandemic in between, to be fair, where a lot of things were not done. But I like the idea about sound, multidisciplinary, integrated teacher education programs. And they are saying, so that just the B.Ed won't do. Right?
Exactly.
So whatever.
Exactly. This is what I wanted to.
Yeah, just the B.Ed won't do. It has to be multidisciplinary, integrated into some other colleges. But the NEP calls it out that they'll get it ready by 2030. So we have time.
Right.
Okay. The other thing I liked is highlight is the national mission of mentoring. So the mentoring, they're saying that they'll create a large pool of senior and retired faculty who were outstanding in their career, and they would become the mentors. Then again, the languages, etc. The other thing I think which is good is the career growth that they are talking about for all the teachers. Otherwise,
That
schools are very
incentivizes.
horizontal
Yeah,
organizations.
yeah. I think it was brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're saying that they will be getting a chance to get promoted. They will be given academic leadership positions, etc., etc. And we all know that they're looking at least 50 hours of continuous professional development for teachers as well as for school leaders. So those are the highlights. If you ask me what they should be doing, to put this into action, they really need to revamp the teacher training curriculum to sort of include the cutting edge research from all over the world. And that's what SHIKSHANGAN is trying to do. They also need to be able to see how to attract top performing graduates into teaching, not just those who get left out of other disciplines.
Exactly. The same point was raised by
have to do that.
Yes, because it is kind of neglected, the last priority kind of, nothing else, and we do teaching something.
Right.
The best
then again, like I said earlier, we need to be building a culture of documentation and research. Okay. I think the biggest challenge to my mind is the shift in pedagogy, because I think it's very difficult for us to move away from this, centuries of rote memorization to getting our students to think. First, the teachers have to do that. Teachers have to be encouraged, to do action research. I'm a strong advocate of action research, and then reflection, review, all of that. That's what I think. My guess is, for me, the biggest takeaway, if you ask me, or the biggest hope, if you ask me, from NEP 2020 is the setting up of Parak. Okay, so that is the learning standards, the benchmark, the standards. It's already in action, because SHIKSHANGAN is in touch with the boards, the CBSE, ICSE, and we know that they have all submitted papers for what should the learning standards be. I don't know whether you're aware, but we also have a document, a very marvelous document produced by NCERT called the Learning Outcomes Document. And so for all the grades, and my guess is that the learning standards would be based on those learning outcomes. And then what will happen? Every class will have a benchmark that I have to attain this kind of learning. Rote memorization won't do. So that's the best thing about NEP for me. I think, and I'm just hopeful.
We are really, the moment it came, I think all the educators are so appreciating this, because I think we've been wanting this change for a very long time. Only thing, it was just not happening. So, ma'am, I think it was an absolutely brilliant session. I would, now that I've spoken with you, I really wanted to ask you maybe 20,000 more questions.
We'll meet again.
But yes, I need to, and I'm going to come over and
you're most welcome.
Have a beautiful interaction with you, another one. But now we come to the 10th question, and that is more about you and your likings.
Okay.
Rapid fire one.
That'll be fun.
So it's going to be a tea or coffee after this, ma'am?
Coffee.
Coffee? Okay. Your favorite movie?
Hindi or English?
Any?
From my childhood, I think Where Eagles Dare.
Oh, that's
I'm a very defense person. From if you ask me now, one of the newer ones, probably Swadesh. I like.
And what's your favorite? How do you de-stress yourself?
Yoga and music.
Music. So you still play sitar?
No, I listen to a lot of music now. But generally classical.
Beautiful. So is it hills or beaches?
Hills.
I think I asked a silly question.
I live in the hills.
So your favorite book, ma'am?
Oh, I'm not reading any novel at all for a long time. I've been reading only academic books. But if you still ask me, the Boy and the Mole and the Me, the Charles Mackenzie book, that's the one
I need to read that
right now.
That's nice. Okay, how do you define yourself, an extrovert or an introvert?
Complete extrovert.
Extrovert, wow. And your sun sign?
Aquarius.
Aquarian, okay. Near the river, near the water. Yeah, it was a brilliant session, ma'am. And I
Thank you
would
so
just
much.
like to talk about a little bit about Ignited Minds, that
Yes.
we also do a similar thing. Like, we have an activity with gliders. They make gliders, So
Mhm.
this topic, uh, it covers aerodynamics, it covers potential to kinetic
So,
energy, and it kind of covers the entire why birds migrate in a V shape. So we try to touch
okay.
upon, like you said, we string together a lot of things in a single project. So this is how Ignited Minds is all about. And I'm going to be learning a lot from you when I come over. And thank you
Please do.
so much. And please do mail me whatever you have so that we can share with a lot of
Certainly.
people. There are a lot of educators who are wanting to connect today, but some problems, happen, and they were messaging me that we won't be available. So they can watch it on YouTube later. So thank
Sure.
you so much, all the attendees who have been on Zoom and were watching us live on Facebook. And thank you so much, ma'am, for sparing your time.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure, Manishri, to be here and to talk about things which normally I don't, because I'm just training usually. So it was nice. There was a personal touch and I enjoyed it myself. I enjoyed going down memory trip myself.
I
Thank
would
you
have
very much.
loved to see you near Narmada. Actually, I've done my post graduation in microbiology from Indore. So we did go to Narmada quite often, and
Oh, okay.
Ujjain, and I think it's a beautiful place. So
Oh,
you were
yes.
lucky to be born there.
Yeah.
And
Thank
thank you
you.
so
Thank
much.
you.
I will listen to Sitar also when I go and come to you.
Pakka, 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 pakka.
Thank you so much. Have a great
Thank
day.
you very much.
Thank
Thank you
you,
very
ma'am.
much.
Grateful.
Namaste.